There's a lot of well-known stories, legends, myths among indigenous people in the Western Hemisphere about the destroyers.
Like the beat of your heart, Mother Earth sends out a healing tone that hits your body and soul. It moves around inside of you. It has to be in the flow of life.
People like us in our civilization who come to destroy. And I've taken that to heart.
This is the hottest place on earth, Death Valley, California, homeland to the ancient Timbisha Shoshone people.
My ancestors have been here forever. During the summer times, they would go higher up towards Wild Rose and get pine nuts and pick different foods up that way and do the hunting and stuff. And then they would travel back down during the cooler months, or they would head towards Beatty. It just depends on, they would head towards Beatty for antelope and stuff like that, green water to hunt rabbit. But during the hottest part of the time, they would really never be down in the valley floor. It was always the heat with no electricity and no, so they would go where springs were.
We have, we believe, at least 70 endemic species that only live in the Amargosa Basin. And, all of those species in various degrees are dependent upon groundwater for their survival.
And travel to the springs and stuff. The food, there's plenty of food in their hunting. They managed to accumulate exactly what they needed.
New interests appear, right? We're living through this moment of this, this transition from, a fossil fuel dependent economy to renewables. And as a result, we've seen a couple of threats looming on the horizon for some time. Large scale industrial solar being one, and another one being new forms of extraction, looking for some of these rare earth minerals that, of course, are essential to us making this transition possible.
There's springs everywhere. And my family, they knew where it all was.
And lithium is actually found very commonly in these kind of these basin areas we have in the Mojave Desert. These kind of semi-saturated alkali wetland type places tend to also have this kind of, higher concentrations of lithium.
And sometimes when you travel from Death Valley Junction heading towards Shoshone and down that way, sometimes it'll be dry. Sometimes you'll see the Amargosa River and you'll see it flowing. Sometimes you'll be lucky enough to see that river flowing. There's fish. There's 28 endangered species here. You've got the devil's pupfish, which is only here, no place else, over at Devil's Hole. I think they were saying the other day there's maybe 4 or 5 different pupfish over at Ash Meadows. Mm-hmm. We also over here at Salt Creek down here in the valley. There's right now you can't go down there because of the Hurricane Hillary, but the pupfish have tripled the amount that's there.
And so about a year ago, we caught wind of a really problematic proposal proposed by a Canadian mining company who was seeking to conduct exploratory drilling for lithium directly against the northern boundary of Ash Meadows National Wildlife Refuge, which is really the heart of the whole watershed. It's the largest oasis in the Mojave Desert, home to at least 26 species that only live in the refuge. It is this island in the desert, and it's also a place of extreme cultural importance to the tribal communities that have occupied this region since time immemorial.
Yes, Rover Meadows.
Mm-hmm.
They've been trying to come in. It's been about a year we've been fighting them. They were denied. They gave us a project plan, and BLM denied the first one, which is wonderful. They haven't turned another one back in. We've been to Washington, D.C. trying to get a mineral rights. We've talked to Congress.
Ash Meadows, we're told it was a meeting place for the Timbisha Shoshone, the Chemehuevi, Southern Paiute. It was, a place that is still highly regarded for, many things, especially the food, the medicine that it produces. And so we saw this proposal and immediately did everything in our power to ensure that a drilling project of this caliber, which was proposing to drill holes within 1,500 feet of some of the largest springs in the refuge, and presented a really direct threat to groundwater needed not only to sustain the refuge, but really to sustain the communities in this part of the watershed.
The beans and the powder that they used to make out of the honey mesquite and the pine nuts and other plants, they would store as they would travel. That way, until when they would come home, they would have places that they would stop where there were springs at, and they would have, a little spot where they had stored food.
The Timbisha Shoshone provided a letter directly to staff within Secretary Deb Haaland's office, asking them not to permit this.
Because of the fact that if they just make one mistake drilling, it's going, one mistake isn't acceptable, because of the fact if they can't cap it, that's a possibility that we're going to lose water here and other places.
We kind of didn't have anything else at our disposal but the strength of the Endangered Species Act. We basically took issue with this project, that it proposed a direct threat to the endangered species that occupy the refuge, and especially these northern springs.
And then to top it off, if they do drill and succeed, what's going to happen to the habitat? What's going to happen to the vegetation? They may say that it's going to adapt to it, but really, in reality, are they going to adapt to it in 5 years?
The worst thing we could let happen is for this just to kind of unfold under the cover of darkness, and for nobody to even know about it. So we raised the alarm.
They bring up the lithium, and then they extract the water back down in a brine. And then the brime's like a thick clay. In time, you're not going to be able to keep, putting it down, and that clay hardens it down there, and you're not going to be able to push very much clay in there. They keep putting that brine down there, and how many holes are you going to have to dig to keep putting brine down? You say that it's going to be easy to put it back. It isn't going to be easy to put it back. And you're still not putting everything back in the ground as it is. So, and they say that they're not using very much water. That's not true. They're actually using quite a bit of water. It's like Rhyolite Ridge. They bought up a lot of the water rights out in Fish Lake Valley. Why do you need all the water rights if you're not going to use that much water?
I feel like we're doomed. That's my personal feeling based on what I've observed. I feel like we're doomed. It all fits in with the way we interact with nature and each other. We're a very violent society. We're a very exploitative society. And it goes back to our roots in Imperial Europe. And these sort of fundamental institutions that we brought here from Europe that are fundamentally destructive. I have a Native American friend who goes out to the desert because he sees it as a healing landscape. That's how he talks about it. That's the story he tells. He says that he goes out there and the place heals him. And I know that's happened for me.
Like the beat of your heart, Mother Earth sends out a healing tone that hits your body and soul. It moves around inside of you. It has to be in the flow of life.